When I went in the service, everyone got called up right after we got out of high school. And many people enlisted. I got called up as soon as I hit 18. And took a train out of Wilkes-Barre, I believe, the Pennsylvania Railroad, out of Wilkes-Barre to New Cumberland, and that's where we were interrogated. And at that time, they decided what branch of the service you would go in based on aptitude tests that you took. To be exact, after they give you an aptitude test, the question that was put to me was, do you like airplanes? And I said, sure, I like airplanes. And the next question was, well, you stand in that line over there. So I got in that line over there. And within 11 months, they had us trained, doing anything from gunnery to mechanical school to going into combat. It was a great feeling of patriotism at that time. The whole country was in it. And I think it was in every person. When you talk about the family, my father was in the mines. We were a whole bunch of kids. My brother was already in the Air Force in Asia when I got called up, doing the same thing that I was doing, only on a B-24 bomber. And it was very difficult at the time, more so because of the financial plight. But the family just accepted this, like most other families. They just were part of it. And was most encouraging for you to get in and to do it. You know, when we start flying, the first mission you're scared to death, and you're scared to death on every mission. You get cocky when you get back, and you had the willingness to go, and there's no question about everyone was primed and ready to go. But if anyone says they weren't scared, then, you know, they had to be a special person because you are afraid. We were flying sometimes 2 missions a day. Most of our missions were flown at the end of '44, early January. I think we were flying like 3 to 4 times a week. We were flying in our Rome bomb squadron. We used to fly 12 bombers in a squadron, maybe 3 squadrons up in the air at one time, a low squadron, a high squadron, 36 planes, all within 50 feet of each other. And then you'd have another group maybe 3 minutes behind you or 3 minutes in front of you. An interesting thing would be when we bombed Berlin that day. When you're up there in the top turret and you look out, there were so many bombers in the sky in front of you and behind you, and maybe several minutes between each bomb group. We'd like looking down a railroad track that comes to a point. That's just how many bombers were in that sky at that time. It was a massive thing, and that was pretty near coming to the end. When you think about the missions we were on, I flew 23 combat missions. The longest one, which was the most treacherous in the sense of that even if no one hit you, could you get back, is when we bombed the submarine pins up in the Baltic Sea, up in a place called Schweinemunde. And that was a mission where we were in the air almost 9 hours, on oxygen for 6 hours, because the B-17s weren't pressurized. You were on oxygen above 15,000 feet for 6 solid hours. Temperatures in the below 30, below 50 degrees, all the way. And in those, we had a special bombing mission that we were on that had special armor-piercing tips on the bombs that would penetrate the concrete pins that were sheltering the German U-boats. If you say to me which was the toughest and the worst mission, was in March the 18th of 1945. March the 18th, 1945, as was coming to the conclusions and the ending of trying to end the war. Patton's army was moving in on everything. We went in there with 1,250 bombers, if you can imagine that force, 700 fighter planes, all in to bomb one city. The largest air armada in history, in combat. But you seem to be in another world when you're there. It's all at once you become, from coming out of high school, you found yourself doing things that you never imagined in your life you would do. And when you talked about the guys on the crew, what they did before, you know, everything from a farmer, and you know, And I came out of high school, I just was dealing like in the automobile parts business and stuff, and I was doing part-time truck driving. But you had found guys that never believed that they should be doing this, and in 10 months, within a year, you were bombing Germany. And after a while, you know, in the leisure moments, you joked and kidded about it, but in between, you kind of was, that became your family there. Because our crew were together from the beginning. We were together in training, we were together flying over, we were together in the war, and after the war we were together, and then we split up after VE Day. We went in different directions. You know, us World War II guys are maybe the wrong people to talk to when you talk about patriotism and what we should or shouldn't do, because I think most of us believe that a stint in the military never will do any harm to anyone because it was beneficial to us. It gives you discipline. You get discipline, you get training, you get to learn respect. We went from kids out of high school to men in a year and a half. You became a man in a year and a half. And you do it in a sense to where when you come out, you not only learn to respect, all the elderly, but you learn to respect each other. And my advice to the young people would be to, you know, look seriously at the kind of sacrifice that the young men and young women are making today to keep them where they are, and to have an optimistic approach toward and a favorable approach toward what they're doing, and to the need for that, for this country to survive in the long term.
Hey, my name is Ron Sims. I wish I could be there for the event tonight. I'm at my house in Florida. I'm a retired artilleryman, Lieutenant Colonel retired. Pat Solano has always been one of my heroes. He was a hero to everybody in World War II, and as a civilian, he's been so helpful for the growth of northeastern Pennsylvania. He's a guy we all love, and congratulations, Pat. I'm glad I could say a few words tonight.
Imagine one day you're a kid just walking home from high school, and then 3 or 4 months later, you're on a bombing mission over Germany in World War II. Hard for me to imagine. And you pray to make it back to base, and you do, but then you face the dichotomy that you made it and some of your friends didn't. And at the end of the war, you come home and you can be filled with anger, you can be filled with angst, but people like Pat Solano reached down inside themselves, found that same strength that got them through battle, and decided what to do for their country, their community. And I will tell you, for 75 years, Pat Solano has been a statesman and has dedicated his entire life to public service. Everyone in this room is better off because of the work Pat Solano has completed. Schools, industrial projects, highways, roads, bridges, everything that he has touched has benefited Pennsylvania. And Pat, we're very grateful. Thank you.
I'm Tom Cooney, and I've been a friend of Pat's for 50 years. We were wondering here how you address Pat Solano. I'd say as a young adult, as a young man, if you had a problem, you would turn to your father figure. You would turn to your family, or if your father's living, you'd turn to your dad and ask your dad, I have a problem, can we sit down and talk about it? That is what Pat Solano is to many of us in our community. He's a father figure. Usually we end up with a problem. Sometimes they're almost unsurmountable. We frequently turn to Pat, and Pat, through conversations with Pat and through referrals, most of those problems seem to go away and disappear. That's what Pat Solano brings to us. He brings to us the ability to address problems and have them go away.
Good evening. I'm State Senator John Yudichak, representing the 14th Senatorial District, Luzerne and Carbon counties in northeastern Pennsylvania. One of my dearest friends and mentor, Pat Solano, a veteran of World War II, the greatest generation in the history of America, and Pat, one of the greatest generations. It's appropriate that Pat is being honored tonight for his service not only to his country as a hero in World War II, but also to his service to veterans and all of northeastern Pennsylvania throughout his public service career and his remarkable life. It is wonderful that he is being honored tonight for a lifetime of service Pat Solano, a dear friend, a mentor to so many of us here in northeastern Pennsylvania. Congratulations, Pat.